I think it was when Avengers hit that I felt this is something so special. Like to this day, the Avengers movie is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's just like a boy movie. It's not like Marvel nowadays where there's like a very mixed like cultures and like everything is in there. Like it was just a very like one tone to me. People are going to come for me. I know it.
When he says on your left and everybody starts coming out, that's one of the best moments of my life. My guest today is an MCU super fan. She's actually one of the biggest Disney fans I've ever encountered in my life, but also one of the biggest MCU fans. And that's why I wanted to have her here in the Vactor-Verse. Today with me is a very good friend, Emmy. How you doing today, Emmy?
Hi, doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing excellent because I'm going to talk to you about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I want to get all of your thoughts here today. I think we're going to have a great show. So let's jump right in with your MCU origin story. So, how did you first come across the MCU? Like, what was your first memories of the MCU?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, like I don't really remember um the okay. I think I'm going to start with X-Men.
Ah,
I think
yes.
that was like my first ever like introduction into what Marvel even is. I mean, I think I don't know how old I was, early 2000s and the X-Men movie came out, it was a big thing. I remember watching that. I remember loving it. I was obsessed with Rogue, like
Ooh.
completely obsessed. And
Oh,
I
wow.
think I love storytelling. I
Yes.
love
Yes.
like supernatural, like out there fantasy kind of stuff. Like I am very drawn to just really cool movies and like books and cartoons. Like I've always been a cartoon girly. Like I still watch cartoons. I'm like 30. But I think X-Men was kind of like my starting point of like people have superpowers. Um and that kind of made me dive into it, followed up by Spider-Man,
Oh,
which I
man.
also really Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man.
Yes.
We've had a lot of
Yes.
Spider-Man since then.
Yes.
But yeah, that was kind of my starting point. I also remember diving a little bit into like the cartoon versions, like X-Men Evolution. I used to
Oh,
watch
man.
that religiously. Um, I just, again, I just love it. I just love anything that's like not your standard like normal TV show, but like something with powers, something where like, complex storylines and characters. I love all of that. So I feel like that
You
kind of dipped my toes into the world.
okay. You are speaking my language. Like, most things that I watch, or if my wife puts on something and they don't have superpowers, my interest level goes because I'm like, I want to see a guy shoot webs out of his hands. I want to see a guy flying. I'm interested in those type of storytelling things. That's what attracts me to comic books and video games and things like that. But I'm loving this origin story that you have because that first X-Men movie was a huge moment for me. Now I had been waiting for something live action because I had been watching the previous X-Men show from '92 before the X-Men Evolution show. There was a huge moment in pop culture with the X-Men. They're actually bringing it back to Disney Plus with X-Men '97. So that I think is going to be a really big deal. But I think X-Men is a big gateway for a lot of people
Hmm.
to Marvel, to mutants, to superpowers,
Right.
all of those things. And whether it's animated or live action, comic book, I think that idea persists of what if you woke up one day and
Hmm.
it wasn't necessarily something that happened to you, like Spider-Man got bit by a radioactive spider or genetically altered spider. What if you just woke up and you had powers and you're persecuted because you're different? Like,
Hmm.
either you look different or you have something, a mutation that makes you different.
Right.
So I think that is very relatable and something that the X-Men kind of touches, and DC doesn't really have the same type of thing in
Mhm.
their universe. So Marvel's really kind of unique with the X-Men, I think. Actually, X-Men and the Inhumans, which they had a Inhuman show, which did not do very well
Or the
on.
movie.
Yeah, um, I really love the X-Men, and that Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was what got me back into comic books because
Mm,
as I was growing up, my dad kind of pushed me into superheroes and comic books, and I kind of liked what he liked.
mhm.
But then, as I got into high school and girls came into the picture, and I said, "Oh, it's time to put those things away." But when Spider Man came out, it was like, "Wait a minute, what have I been missing all these years that I wasn't reading comic books?" And so that was a huge moment for me too. So I think you and I have that kind of origin connection as well between Spider-Man and X-Men. So those are great first steps. Do you remember when you first heard about Iron Man? Because that was like the official start of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Was it something that you were, because Iron Man was not a character that people were excited about when that movie first came out? Do you remember when you first heard about the first Iron Man movie?
Yes, I remember. I remember vividly because I was so young. I was so young. I've only ever seen X-Men, and my boyfriend at the time was like, "You have to come watch this movie with me in theaters." And I was like, What is this? Like, who is Iron Man?" I had no clue what Marvel was. I had no clue what the universe was. I've seen the comic books like at hair salons and stuff, like some of them, but like I've never like seen anything in this world as like, like all of it together. And I didn't even connect it to X-Men. Like I had no clue. And I remember
Mm.
going to the movies, and I remember the scene where like Robert Downey Jr. just makes the Iron Man suit and just flies it for the first time. And I remember thinking, what am I watching? Like I was so not into it. I was like, what is this? This is like a boy movie. This is
Mm.
a boy movie.
Yes.
And granted,
Yes.
I love superheroes. I love like anything that is Marvel related, but that first kind of MCU movie, I was not about it. I was just so
Mm.
bored.
That I can see that because it was kind of like he was into hot rods, like he was into cars and machines, and um, I could see that
Right.
being very boy centric. Yeah.
Right. I mean, Pepper's in it, but like, it's just like a boy movie. It's not
Right.
like
Right.
Marvel nowadays where there's like a very mixed like cultures and like
Yes.
everything is in there. Like it was just a very like one tone to me. People are
Right.
gonna come for me, I know it, but like in that moment in time and space of me being a teenager, I just was not into it.
Mm. Man, I loved the ending of Iron Man where Nick Fury comes out. Sam Jackson. I don't know. Did you even stay
You know
past the
what?
credits? Because that was not even a thing back
It
then.
wasn't. No, I think it wasn't until like maybe the Thor or
Okay.
one of those where I stayed because a friend was like, "Oh, there's an extra scene." But before that, I just had no clue. And how smart of them to do that, to plug in to create this universe that none of us had any idea where it was going. But I did not stay at that point. But I do know that scene now.
Yes, and that was like, as a comic book fanboy, to me, it was like, this is what I have been waiting for. With the Spider-Man movie, it was all Sony, like it was all just Spider-Man. There was no other heroes existed. With the X-Men movie, there was just the X-Men, Fox. There was no other heroes that existed. There was a Hulk movie. I was like, why can't we just see them connect to each other? Why can't there was a Fantastic Four movie, and I was like, can we just see Spider-Man swinging in the
Right, the
background? We don't
Fantastic
even have
Four
to.
movie. That
Yes, the
forget.
Jessica
Like
Alba.
I've seen
Yeah.
it multiple times, but to me, it does not exist in the timeline. uh,
Yes. Yeah.
Hulk doesn't either.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And that was the dream, was
hmm
the connected universe. And it was like, all these guys are characters that I love. I
hmm
wish they could all be in the same universe, which is what I loved about the comic books, because
Right.
there would be a comic where Hulk would be just, all right, it's a Hulk comic, but oh, Wolverine just showed up
Right.
and he exists in this universe. They all were in New York, and it was like you couldn't walk down the street without running into another superhero.
Yeah.
So when that Nick Fury scene, when Sam Jackson came out, number one, I was like, "What is it's happening? It's happening!" And I could not believe it. But I was also watching with my dad, like I said, who kind of got me into superheroes, and I was just expecting him. Which my dad, 90% of the time, "Hey, Dad, what do you think about that movie?" It was all right. 90% of the time.
Right.
So I said, "Dad, what do you think about Iron Man?" He turns to me, "That was the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life." And I was like, I could not believe it had such an impact on him. Now, I loved it too, but for my dad, who is a
Mhm.
very tough critic, it was like that was mind blowing to me. So yeah, so that was like the start of the MCU. Where did it start to kind of pick up momentum for you, where you were like, I need to see every single one of these? Like, do
Uh,
you remember that moment?
you know what? There's no one specific moment. I think that I did watch them individually. And again, like these are like formative years, right? Like when it happened, like again, like teenager to like 20 something. So it's like you're kind of growing up with them in a way. And it's a very natural fit with my likes, my personality. Like I'm like I said, I'm very like I love Sailor Moon. I love like anything like House Moving Castle, but I also love rom-coms. Like I have different sides of me. So like while I'm growing up, I'm also sort of seeing Captain America and then a Thor. And I'm really connecting with the stories and the characters. And I think it was when Avengers hit that I felt this is something so special. Like to this day, the Avengers movie is one of my all-time favorite movies. Like it's a comfort movie to
Mm,
me.
yes, yes.
It makes me cry every single time. And I always look over to my husband and I'm like, I just love how they all come together. Like they're all coming together to support each other and they're like in their like, in their own world, but like they each have their own unique like it's just like amazing to watch. Like I just
Yes.
really like it. The element of like you said, like everything is going to come together and they're all going to be like walking around New York because they're all there at the same time.
Yes.
So I think it was the Avengers where I was like, this is it. Like I really,
Yes.
really like this.
Man, I remember standing in line for the midnight showing of the first Avengers movie. That was back when they would show movies at midnight instead of today. You can see them at 3 p.m. on the opening day. But back then, back in my day, we used to have to stay up till midnight, kids, to watch these movies. And the Avengers was same for me. It was like coming together, that realizing each one of these stories that I've been watching year after year is leading to something, is leading up to something. And I think we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but that was both a gift and a curse for the MCU, because it is what makes it special. But then I think fast forward to 2024, it is what is kind of dragging it down at this point. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so Avengers, first Avengers, we're high on the MCU train. Um, when they started to get a little weird, Guardians of the Galaxy and these other properties, like had you heard of Guardians of the Galaxy before
No.
the movie?
Like I'm not a well versed in the comic side of it. I do have a friend though, shout out to Diego. He is the comic book guy for me. Like every time something comes out, like any MCU TV show, whatever, when I'm watching it, I'm live texting him. I'm like, what is this and what does this mean and what is this character? Give me the download. Like I don't know. But it doesn't deter me nowadays. Like anything that comes out, I'll probably watch. At that point, Guardians, I had no clue what it was, but I was like, it's Marvel. It's in the timeline. We're gonna watch it. And it was one of the best movies, I think, at the time. Still one of the best. Like it just kind of stands out on its own too. But yeah, I'm like, it can get
That was
weird.
a
It can get weird, and
that
I'll watch it.
and I remember when that movie came out, I was like, this is what Star Wars should be. Like the way that it's like it's weird, there's a family, like it's fun, it's funny, there's great action. I was like, this is what Star Wars should be. They should go off of this Guardians model. I still don't think they've done that yet, but
No, bro, no. It's
uh,
like different, like tone for sure. Because Guardians, like, I feel like does a really good balance of like semi drama with perfect comedic timing.
yes,
And most of that goes to the cast, right? Like they
yes,
have
yep.
really good comedic timing. They're serious when they need to be. Like it just like is really well balanced.
Yeah, that was a fantastic cast. The writer director James Gunn, he like his stamp is on that. Like his
Mm-hmm.
fingerprints are all over that. And that was a great year too. That was 2014. Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier came out that year also, and that to this day is one of my favorite MCU movies of all time. Introduced Bucky as the Winter Soldier. It made Steve Rogers more interesting to me. The first movie was okay, the first Soldier, but it was the Winter Soldier that like I was like, I love Captain America. He's one of my favorite guys. After seeing this movie, and I remember my wife actually took me out for my birthday. It came out, and that was her birthday gift to me. So I was like, all right, this is a winner. I need to marry her. So I did that later. We were just dating at the time, but it was I think Guardians and Ant-Man were the two kind of weird ones from that. That was phase two of the MCU, leading up to Age of Ultron, the second
Ooh,
Avengers
I
movie.
watched that in Hawaii on my honeymoon.
Ooh, oh,
Yeah,
nice.
we like literally I remember it because I was like, there's an Avengers movie coming out. I won't be home. I'm still gonna watch it. So we
Yeah.
left our resort to go watch it.
Yes.
So I actually have two movies that like are eventful in my life. It's like my honeymoon, Age of Ultron, and then our 1 year anniversary. We're on a Disney cruise, and they were screening Civil War.
Oh man.
Like,
Man. Mm.
yeah, when it came out, and so we watched it on like I think it was the Disney Wish or the Disney Dream, one of those. And you can feel the boat, like it was all the way to the top, and but they're fighting, so you're kind of getting this motion. I remember it vividly. It was like the
Oh
best
man.
experience.
Hey, that's great. That is fantastic. And that also is one of my favorite movies. And I had my wife read the comic book of Civil War before that happened. And again, I said this is the person I need to marry. But when that movie came out, that was the introduction of the MCU Spider-Man, basically, like the Tom Holland Spider-Man. First time you're seeing him, and no disrespect to Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, but Tom Holland's Spider-Man is the like when I think about Spider-Man, it's the age appropriate,
Oh,
like he
right. I
looks like a
always
high
say
schooler.
Tobey Maguire was way too old. Andrew
He
Garfield was way
had to be
too
30,
cool. Andrew Garfield was way too cool. But Tom Holland,
100%.
I feel
Yes.
like fits the personality of Spider-Man way more. No
Yes.
shade to the like the Tobey Maguire got me into it, but he was too old.
He had to be 35
I
and he
know.
was playing a high schooler and I was like, "What is
Right.
going on?"
And Andrew Garfield
Um
just looks cool.
Yeah, that was it. It is funny when you say that because Peter Parker is always supposed to be the nerdiest guy in the
Hmm.
room. Like he's supposed to be this super smart, super intelligent, but he's his mind is like thinking about science instead of what
Right.
girls can I get like, and Andrew Garfield like I think he's too good looking to me. He's too like he was on a skateboard and it was like
Right.
what
It's
is
like
going
he was just
on? This
giving
is
like cool guy vibes that like science.
Yeah. I was
But
like, "This is
I still
not
enjoy I
my
still think he
Spider-Man."
should have gotten that third movie.
Yeah, that was, sad that didn't happen, and the reason why specifically, I think he was the funniest Spider-Man out of all of them, and that's another key element for Spider-Man. I think he has to be nerdy, he has to be funny when he's in the costume because he's supposed to be nervous and he's like talking the whole time, kind of like they make Deadpool a little bit. And it's that was one of the things that attracted me as a kid. I was like, "Oh, Spider-Man is funny. Like he makes me laugh." And I always liked that. And then when the Tobey Maguire movies came out, I was like, "Where's the jokes? Why isn't he making wisecracks the whole time?" So that's why wow, that yeah, that is 100%. So that's what I loved about the Andrew Garfield ones. And what's crazy about in Civil War, this starts off phase 3. I think this is like the best phase of all of them. And we got weird stuff with Doctor Strange, Thor Ragnarok, which was like completely different from the other two Thor movies. That's where Black Panther came out and was just a phenomenon, $1 billion movie. Guardians 2. A lot of these weird type of movies were coming out, but there was also like a bookend of there was Spider-Man Homecoming in 2017 and then Spider-Man Far From Home in 2019. So those are both in phase 3, but it all leads up to Endgame, Infinity War and Endgame, which to me is the peak of the MCU. And I don't know if they will ever be able to top when you in the moment of Endgame when he says on your left
Oh
and
my
everybody
god.
starts coming out. That's one of the best moments of my life.
The
One of the
best like
best.
cinematic experience, like collectively everybody just like lost their shit. Can I say shit?
Yeah, yeah, you're
um
fine.
yeah, oh my god, it was like goosebumps type of
That
like
I'm getting them right now
right,
thinking
like the
about that
movie
moment.
experience is never gonna, you can't replicate that. And the minute Captain America picks up the hammer
Oh, that's
and
another one. Yes.
everyone just screams. But you know what? They spent a decade building up, taking their time, leaving us little kernels. Like at the end of every movie, we'd have like, the after the credits scene and like little things, and like characters may intertwine, may not. We have an Avengers. So it was all laid out perfectly. And to your point, what's happening now, they don't, I feel like they're not taking the time that they need like they did the first time, where we were all so invested in where it was all going to lead up, that the payoff with Endgame was just like, you can never get that back. Like even now, every time I rewatch it, I'll rewatch it like in timeline order. Um and then I'll get to Endgame and I'm just like, oh, I lived in this world, like it just it leads up. It's great. I always skip the Hulk. Um but it's
That is my
great.
least favorite. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, I personally, and I'm pretty sure there's most people out there still craving or chasing that high.
Yes.
Like,
I think
am I gonna get that payoff?
there's been a lot of setup in phase 4, which is like the current phase. There's been a lot of like setups, but no payoffs. And that was what was great about first of all the first Avengers, like the setup of all of those, and then the payoff of the Avengers. The second phase still building and building and building, and then the third phase, that huge release of Infinity War and Endgame. It was just like everything, all these characters, and what's crazy is it's like it's not even scratching the surface of how many comic book characters they have. Because my buddy the other day he was like, "Hey, do you know every Marvel character?" And I was like, I googled it. There are 80,000 Marvel characters. No, I don't know every single character, but there's so much stuff that they could um they have so much material to draw from. And the the closest thing we've gotten has been No Way Home, which was like the buildup of those Tobey Maguire movies, the Andrew Garfield movies, and then the Tom Holland movies. Like that was a fantastic moment for fans who had been following all of those ones, and we weren't expecting it to happen. That's what actually really made it fantastic. Was like I didn't know that Andrew Garfield was going to show up. I didn't know Tobey Maguire was going to show up because first of all, Andrew Garfield leading up, I don't know if you remember this, leading up to that, every interview he was doing, they were asking him about
Right.
it, and he was like, "No, I'm not." They believe me, if I was in that movie, I would tell you. And it later came out. I was listening to an interview with him, and he was like, "Yeah, this Uber driver, like he ordered Uber Eats, and it was during the pandemic, and he had a mask on, but the guy still knew it was Andrew Garfield, and they were in Atlanta, and he was like, he put two and two together." And he leaked it to the press. It's like, I just delivered Uber Eats to Andrew Garfield. He is Spider Man. He's going to be in this movie.
Right.
Um,
You know what?
but
I do think I knew because of
okay.
that. Because it
Oh,
was
okay.
leaked and I kind of stumbled upon it like, "Oh, there's a rumor that they're going to be." I'm like, "If the rumor is there, I'm pretty sure they're going to do it." So, but still watching it and the moment that like, they're doing the portal and he comes through, I still got chills even though I knew, or like I was like, there's a high possibility. The moment that he showed up, I was like, oh my God, like this is another
That
one of those moments.
that was an amazing moment. And I remember that there was a girl in my audience to my left, and she was hyperventilating. And I was like, what is she like? Because I wasn't expecting it. It's like, what is she going crazy about? She was like, and when he showed up, when his face came
Right.
clear on the screen, I was like, ah.
You're
And
just
then
like
told me,
her. You were also hyperventilating.
yes, yes. And Tobey Maguire was the same way because I was like, oh, he was done with Spider-Man. Like he hadn't done any press for Spider-Man and he hadn't
Hmm.
talked about Spider-Man. So when he showed up, like my mind exploded. I was like, this is amazing. So that was another one that was like build up, build up, build up,
Yeah.
tension, tension, tension,
Yeah.
release. And it was like it feels so good to that it leads somewhere.
Hmm.
The problem that we have now with the MCU, and there's a ton of stuff that I still like, and I still go and see every movie. I think you do too.
Yeah.
And it to the point now, I don't think they have a clear goal of where it's going necessarily. Like they've said, "Oh yeah, we have it planned out. We have phase 5 and 6 planned out, and here's our list." But I think that has just been kind of like to appease the shareholders and be like, "Hey guys, have
Maybe. Yeah.
confidence in Disney." I don't think they know with a certainty where it's going, and each one of these movies and TV shows that have come out, I've taken them kind of on their own as, okay,
Hmm.
here's She-Hulk, here's this storyline. Which did you like She-Hulk? Because I felt like that was kind of like a rom-com in the MCU.
I
Did
liked
you?
it, but it's not one that I've rewatched because I just don't have like, like WandaVision. I've rewatched it like 6 times. She-Hulk, I watched it once as it came out. I liked it as a standalone, like you said. Like it's a thing. I watched it. I'm good. Secret Invasion. I watched it. I'm good. But WandaVision and Loki, which were the original Plus series, um, those I've
Those are the high
rewatched a
point.
lot.
Yes. Both of those are
the
like
quality,
movies.
the
Yes.
quality of those in comparison to the shows we're getting now, I'm like, what's going on, guys? What's going on?
Yeah. And
Um,
I think there is a little something to there was some reports that came out that the way that they were doing the structure of the TV shows was kind of like, all right, let's film a movie, then we'll cut it up into 6 pieces and make that a show. And we're not going to film it like a TV show. We're not going to structure it like a TV show. And I don't have any confirmation of that, but it seems to add up. Like it seems to match up with the shows that we've gotten, Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
mhm.
Like they felt like movies
That
and
one felt like a movie to me.
yeah,
I
they
will say
didn't
that.
feel like TV shows. And even with She-Hulk, apparently like the order of the episodes got switched around, and what was supposed to be the last episode got moved up to the second episode, and it was like, "Well, this is like it doesn't feel right. It just doesn't
Hmm.
gel right." There's a scene where she's in the courtroom, and her nemesis Titania comes in, and she just busts in the courtroom and is like, what is going on?" Apparently, she had been introduced before, but because
Hmm.
they restructured it, it didn't make sense now. It's like out of order.
Right.
So there was stuff like that where I'm like, man, I'm still here as an MCU guy, but my wife and people coming off the street, it's harder for me now to get people excited about the MCU versus during those first 3 phases,
Right.
it was easy to be like, "Oh, this is the new MCU movie, this is the new Marvel movie. This is why you should go see it." And people are like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go see that." Also, there was less things for them to get caught up on.
Mhm.
Now, in 2024, there's like 30 something pieces of media that you have to watch. And people are starting to feel overwhelmed by, oh, I got to do all this backstory. I got to do all this
Mhm.
work, homework to go into it. And that's what I was saying a little bit earlier about. I think it's a gift and a curse that they kind of trained the audience to be like, hey, everything matters. Everything is tying into the next thing. Well, now you've given that expectation, and if they go into She-Hulk, they're like, "Oh, wait, do I have to watch all the Hulk movies? Do I have to watch everything else?" When you really didn't. Like, the She-Hulk stuff kind of existed on its own for the most part, and giving that homework to people, I think, is leading to people being like, "Oh, I'm burned out on the MCU. I'm burned out on superheroes, burned out on all this stuff."
Mhm.
When I think it's not necessarily burnout of good content. It's like burnout of, oh, I don't know where this is going. I don't have a sense of structure to this. And it's not like Percy Jackson, which just came out on Disney
Mhm.
Plus, where it's like, okay, I can start at the first episode, I can go through, I know like this is his origin story, this is the beginning of Percy Jackson. I'm here for the ride. With this Echo show that just came out,
I haven't
they
watched it.
called it
No spoilers.
okay, I won't spoil it, but at the very beginning, the first thing that comes up instead of the Marvel, the typical Marvel logo, it is Marvel Spotlight. And from what they're saying, what they're telling us, this branding, and it has its own music and everything. The branding of Marvel Spotlight is supposed to be you don't have to have any backstory
Okay.
to watch this. That's not actually true
Well,
because
if you've watched any, I mean, hmm. I mean, I would want to know why they've invested into this character. Like, why am I getting, is it 5 episodes? Like, 5 episodes of
yes,
this character being flushed out a little bit more?
right, right.
Like,
And
I would have no idea where she came from.
right. And they try to do this little recap of Hawkeye, which is that was where she
Hmm.
first debuted, was in Hawkeye. And I'm like, that's not really like enough to me. I think you need to watch Hawkeye. You need to get the
Hmm.
full context
Right.
of where she comes from. And then did you watch any of the Netflix Marvel shows?
Daredevil,
Okay.
Jessica Jones, those.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I did.
Luke Cage.
That's
Okay.
yes, and I loved all of them.
Yes.
And it also was
And
a thing where they came together at the end.
yes,
Like,
for
yeah.
Defenders. Yes.
Mhm.
Right. So those, even though they're Marvel, they exist
Right.
supposedly
They're
like
like in their own little
separate,
world.
but they're bringing Daredevil in, which is supposed to be the next show, Daredevil Born Again, and the Kingpin. So both of those, the actors and the characters, are being brought in from those Netflix shows. So if you haven't seen, okay, so I don't want to spoil it. How much do you know about Echo? Let me ask you that. How much do you know about the Echo show, like the story of it?
Nothing other than what was shown in Daredevil.
Okay. So oh, and you watched Hawkeye.
Yes, sorry, Hawkeye.
Okay. So in Hawkeye, spoilers if you haven't seen Hawkeye, you know that she shoots Kingpin at the end.
Yes.
Like there's a tie between her and Kingpin. The Echo show picks up on that tie. So if you hadn't seen Hawkeye, you wouldn't know Echo. If you hadn't seen Daredevil, you
You
wouldn't
would
know who
know
the Kingpin
Kingpin.
is.
Yeah.
And then you wouldn't know that they're connected. So I'm like, this spotlight thing, the Echo was a really bad example or be the first one to be this
Hmm.
spotlight. It's like kind of a bad example, but I do want to get your thoughts after you watch it. So add me to the Diego chat. Add me to the every time we watch something, and I can add some knowledge there too. But I think for them to move forward now, there's two things that I think are going to bring back the excitement of the
Mhm.
MCU. Number one is mutants, and you watched Miss Marvel, right?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Um,
But I know obviously it's been a while, so I know, and
yes.
I even watched the ending. I haven't watched the movie. I'm a mom.
Okay.
I'm busy. I'm waiting for it to be on Disney Plus to watch it, which is probably not. But see, if this was phase 1, phase 2, I would have done whatever it took to watch. But now because they're everything that's coming out is kind of like I'll just catch it on Disney Plus. But
Yeah.
anyway, I do know
That's an
there's a little preview and there were rumors of the X-Men, so I was like, okay, yes, let's
yes.
see how we
Okay.
do.
That's a you bring up a great point. People I think after COVID
Mm-hmm.
have been trained to wait for Disney Plus on a
Yeah.
lot of stuff, and I think that's hurt both Marvel and Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Star Wars hasn't had a movie since, so they haven't necessarily felt it. But I think all the Disney properties are feeling that at the box office. And the one you're talking about is the Marvels. Here's another confusing thing. Miss Marvel was the show on Disney Plus with the young girl, Pakistani girl. So she is in the Marvels,
Right. I did
and
watch her show.
okay, so you know she's a mutant. She's the first mutant. Technically, she is the first mutant in the MCU. So, and you know, the Marvels has a X Men something in it. So,
Wait, she's a
if
mutant?
in the show, she's talking to her buddy, and he's like, hey, I scanned your blood, and there's a mutation. And right when he says that, the X Men music plays in the background. It's very
Okay.
slight. So that is the first confirmation that there are mutants in the Marvel universe.
But that's for
In the
Monica
comics,
Monica Rambeau, not for right?
uh, so Monica Rambeau from WandaVision, and then
And the Marvels.
yes,
Okay.
Carol Danvers, Monica Rambeau, and then Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
All three are in
Kamala.
the Marvels. Yes, so she is the mutant. Kamala Khan is the first
Okay.
mutant in the Marvel universe, and if they can do the X Men right,
Yeah.
if they can introduce mutants, make it make sense, because why haven't we seen mutants this whole time in the Marvel universe,
Well,
right?
maybe
Like
we have.
that, I hope they make that make sense. Like Doctor Strange made us forget. Oh, they were here the whole time, but Doctor Strange
I
made
don't
us
want them
forget.
to do that. That would be just like a very quick like exit route for them to be like, you know.
Yeah. And it makes less sense for the older characters. Like, okay, let's say Rogue is young. Let's say they have these young characters, right? Okay, we didn't know about them. They're just now coming out. Wolverine has been around for
Mhm.
centuries. Like, we should have known about him. Now, in She-Hulk, there is a little background thing. If you pause it, there's a newspaper clipping that says, "Man seen in bar with metal claws." That's
Oh,
supposed to
right.
be
I did see
Wolverine.
that. I did see that. Yeah.
So maybe they'll be like, and I don't know what Deadpool 3 is coming out this year. That's going to be the
That's
only
gonna be
MCU
yeah.
movie, and Hugh Jackman is in it.
Who's in it? So
Maybe we're
with
going
the
to get
yellow suit.
some, yes, yes, maybe we're going to get some multiversal Wolverine. But if they can do the X-Men correctly, that is going to bring in so many people into back into the theater, and if the word of mouth is like, this is amazing, you got to go see the X-Men movie, that's the first thing I think to get people back excited about the MCU. The second thing is the Fantastic Four. They've already announced that, and there's been a little bit of drama behind the scenes because the directors have changed, and there's been and we still don't have like a confirmation on the cast yet. But Fantastic Four was Marvel's first family. Like, they were the before the Avengers, it was the Fantastic Four was a super team of heroes. So if they can do the Fantastic Four right and get people talking about it, I think those two things are going to bring the MCU back.
I think that they might because based on their track record, we've had the Tobey Maguire, the Andrew Garfield, and then Tom Holland, which was, you know, right on the money. And then we've had two different versions with two different cast members of X-Men and Fantastic Four. So if all goes right, maybe, maybe. Because
I
I would
hope.
love a live action X-Men like that just really hits on all those characters and the world building, and like we don't talk about the previous X-Men movies. um, but yeah, that would be really good. But you know what, I personally have been waiting for Young Avengers.
Ooh,
Like
yes. Hmm.
I am so still obsessed with the first round of MCU with all of those characters, and the more we like kind of go on the timeline, the less we see of these characters, and
Yeah.
it just like it literally breaks my heart. I'm like, why? I don't want to move on. But now we have all of these Young Avengers, right? We have America Chavez. We have Ant-Man's daughter, Catherine
Yes.
Newton, Cassie Lang,
Cassie Lang.
and we have Elena, right? We have Kate Bishop. It's building to be a really good movie to me if all these people are together. And
Yes.
I know
And
it's going to be Young Avengers, right?
that looks like what they're doing, and I hope they do it right, because the Young Avengers book, if anyone has not read it, is one of the best comic series of all time. And the leader of the Young Avengers, so each one is kind of like an analog to, like you were saying, the original lineup. So there's a Captain America,
Mm-hmm.
there's a Hawkeye, there's a Black Widow, there's in the comics there's a Hulk, and there's a Wanda's kids. Both of them are part of the Young Avengers. The Captain America, or I'm sorry, Falcon and the Winter Soldier show. Do you remember the grandson of like the first Black Captain America, when Falcon goes and visits him? His grandson opens the door because he's trying to get back
Mm-hmm.
to the original guy. His grandson is Iron Patriot, or he's the one who's supposed to turn into the Captain America of
Okay.
the Young Avengers. So I'm hoping they can do that storyline correctly, because
Well,
Young
we're gonna get a
Avengers will
Captain
be
America
major.
movie,
Yes, that's
so
another one. Yes,
maybe
he
because
could be introduced
they
in there.
have
Yeah,
been introducing the Young Avengers
right,
characters.
right.
So if it's now, I'm saying now, I'm gonna guess if they do introduce them, that's gonna be to keep tying it into Young Avengers.
That would
I'm
be
gonna call it right
fantastic.
now. We'll see.
Yes. I would love to see, and his name is Patriot. Sorry, I said Iron Patriot. Just Patriot is his name, but I would love to see that, and that would also bring back excitement. And I, I hate to say this, but I almost think some people have aged out of the MCU, like who started in phase one, now in phase four and phase five. Their children are like they're starting to pass it on to their kids, and maybe that audience will latch on to Young Avengers and be like, "Hey, my dad liked the Avengers, and now I have the Young Avengers." So hopefully that'll grab
New
some new
fans.
MCU fans. But man, I cannot wait to see what is in store, because I want these lead ups to matter. I want them
Mhm.
to go somewhere, because a lot of the post credit scenes have not been paid off at this point in the
Right.
current phase that we're in.
Right.
And I don't want those to be like we never get a resolution for
Mhm.
those. Like um I don't know what's going to happen with this Blade movie, because that keeps on getting pushed back, and there's been a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm hoping we get this release of, hey, all of this stuff is leading to stuff. The multiverse of madness, the Doctor Strange, where all of a sudden Charlize Theron shows up and, hey, you got to go
Right.
in this dimension with me. Let's go. And
I'm
it's
like,
like,
can I get
what?
that movie?
Yeah. And
Okay.
I know the comics background, but like for the movie, like we don't get anything about who that is, what her name is.
Right.
Like,
That's kind of the sort of thing where I have to text and be like, "What the hell just happened? Give me the context." Like, as I don't read the comics, right? So like, where would you get that information? You just have to
right.
wait and hope that they're working on Doctor Strange 3, which I
Yeah.
guess he's still missing his third movie. Everyone's gotten 3. I don't know if he will not. Because at this
Yeah.
point, it's been a while.
Yes. And Another thing we have to now account for is the actors aging out, because either aging out or their interest, I think, is like, hey, I'm done with the MCU. I've like Chris Evans, like, hey, I did 10 years, I'm good. All right, guys. Or Robert Downey Jr. Like, um, because the humans age in real life, we can't keep the characters the same age like they do in the comics, where it's like, hey, Peter Parker's been 30 for 70 years now, and it's like, yes. So that's another. I want to see how Marvel reckons with that. Are they gonna just pass it off to the next guy? Like, all right, now you're Captain America, now you're Black Widow, or are they gonna reboot it? All right, we're bringing it back to Steve Rogers
I
again. We're
really,
doing this
really,
again.
really hope that I don't get a reboot in my lifetime. It's perfect. Do not mess with it. Like I just
There's a
I would not
there's a
like
p-
another reboot. I
yeah,
rather the
there's a
passing of the mantle than a reboot.
yeah. I'm with you. I think there's a part of me that wishes they had stopped at Endgame, because it was like the perfect, if
Hmm.
if you had like, that
Right.
was the perfect way to seal off this universe, and then go to something else after that. But I'm with you.
Well, we wouldn't have gotten Wanda Vision and Loki because those were like right after that, and those two shows need to live.
I love both of those
Hmm.
shows. So yeah, I'm I'm conflicted. Like, there's two parts of me that's
Right,
like,
I know. Maybe
half of me
after
likes
that they could
this.
have cut it off because
Yeah,
as much as I love Marvel, the movies and everything right now in this phase that we're in with Kong, I'm just like, it's not like with Thanos and like the build up. Right now, I'm just like, is he a big bad? Do I
yeah,
feel
and
the threat? Do I feel the stakes?
right.
Not really. I don't know if it's because he hasn't been mentioned as much because we're not getting as many movies as we used to. But I'm like, where is this going?
Yeah, I think his appearance in Ant-Man, the Quantum Mania version of him, was not as threatening as I would have
Mm-hmm.
liked him to be. I think his Loki, the version that appears in Loki, He Who Remains, to me was the most imposing. Like, that's the guy that I'm afraid of.
Right.
And we got him in both seasons of Loki, but everything else has been like,
Right. I
maybe, like,
haven't seen him or any like a lackey or anybody connected to
yeah,
him. So I'm like, where are we going? Where is this leading?
yeah,
I am usually the person that is like, I am like waiting for the next Spider-Man, for the next, and I know
yes,
it's coming. But now I'm like, what's coming? Like, I don't even
yeah,
know. And
right,
again, I love these movies, but I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know what's coming. I don't know what to
yeah,
look forward to, except maybe please send me Doctor Strange 3 so I can know what happens.
yeah.
Um,
I think it's like catching up with them, of like them doing it one by one, instead of, all right, we have this overall plan. It feels like now the curtains being pulled back, like the seams are showing, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, they didn't have a plan the whole time.
mhm.
They're kind of going by the seat of their pants, and that's fine. They can do that, but don't promise me you have it all figured out. You have a plan and you know where it's going. If you're doing it, all right, let's see how this progresses. Let's see, did the audience like this one? Okay, we'll continue in that direction. Or if they didn't like it, we're going to move away from them. And
Mhm.
now we have the real life thing with Jonathan Majors, because
Right.
of what is happening with him. We don't know if Marvel is gonna, because they haven't said, are they just gonna push Kang to the side and not use him? I've heard rumors that they're gonna bring in
Recast.
Doctor Doom. Yeah, that's another thing. Or are they gonna keep Kang and just recast him as another person? I heard a rumor. I have, again, Marvel is not saying anything. They kind of kept their lips sealed. But I heard a rumor that Jonathan Majors has a clause in his contract that no one else can play Kang but him, which, that's kind of smart for him as an actor. But for us, it's like, well, now you're throwing in a wrench into all these things because of what you did, because of what
Hmm.
happened outside of the movies and everything. Now we don't know what's going to happen. So that's kind of all up in the air. But I think you make a very good point. Having a threat to tie everything together and be like, okay, I am afraid of, can they defeat this guy? Can they beat him? And that Ant-Man version of him, it was like, oh, he got beat by an ant. He got beat by a bunch of ants. And I didn't feel the threat of him. Like, he yelled a lot and he was like, I'm gonna get you. But I didn't feel that like Thanos. Like, I didn't feel like he was gonna take everybody out. And so that's something they need to work on, of who is going to be the big bad of this. So the next Avengers movie is supposed to be Secret Wars, and in the comics, Doctor Doom is a huge part of that. So they could pivot to Doctor Doom instead.
But
And
wouldn't they have to do like a Fantastic Four movie if they want to have him there? So it's like all of these things where I'm like, let's, it was so natural with phase one, phase two, like they all just, and so now I'm like grasping at straws and just, I'm just hoping for the movies I want to watch and
hmm,
just, being like, I don't know what's going to happen with their bigger plan as long as
right,
I get my closure with like Doctor Strange, right? I need my closure.
right. They have a release date for Fantastic Four. It's May of 2025, so next year. They don't even have the cast in place yet. So I
Yeah.
don't know, like, has the story been written? I don't know what's going to happen with that movie. It seems kind of fast. Like, we normally we know a lot of stuff that's, the movie's next year. So
Right. Even
hopefully
with
they
like the
can,
new Captain America, they've pushed
yeah,
the date so much that I even forget that it's a thing.
yeah.
Like
There's
I've
that, and then the Thunderbolts is the other
right.
one.
Like not that I've lost interest because if I see that something's coming out, I'll go watch it, but I'm not following it like I used to because it's all over the place for me.
Right. Yeah. And so I think if they can bring us back to that point where we're like, this is the best thing out, like these are the best movies, these are the best TV shows. I'm hopeful. I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when is Marvel going to come back, because they're what they did with those first three phases. I don't know if that will ever be topped either by another studio or by Marvel. So I give them credit for that decade of movies that they did, but I just don't know, how are they going to come back? How are they going to follow that up? So we will be here, uh, waiting and anticipating, and I hope, Emmy, that you enjoyed yourself and you will come back and talk about Echo or the Marvels or the next phase of the MCU, and let us know what you're thinking, because you are, like I said, one of the biggest Marvel and Disney fans that I know. So I love talking to you about this stuff. I love hearing your perspective. So please come back to my show and do another round here in the Vactor-Verse.
I definitely will. I'll talk about anything all day, every day. I have thoughts.
Yes. Yes. Perfect. Um, Emmy's got thoughts, and we hopefully have more episodes for you here in the Vectorverse in the future. We're going to be talking more about all of the comic books and Star Wars, all the things that your heart can desire here in the Vectorverse.